The Bank of Korea keeps its benchmark interest rate steady at 3.5% for the 10th consecutive policy meeting, citing higher inflation among other factors. With the 2024 general election over, preparations are underway for a new National Assembly that's set to open on May 30th. We take a closer look at some of the key timelines. South Korea, the US, and Japan conducted a joint naval drill for 2 days in waters off Korea's Jeju Island to better tackle nuclear and missile threats from North Korea. In a rare move, a US nuclear-powered aircraft carrier was open to the media. It's April 12, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The Bank of Korea keeps its benchmark interest rate steady at 3.5% for the 10th session in a row, citing higher inflation among others. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun stirs us off.
South Korea's central bank kept its benchmark interest rate steady at 3.5% as widely expected, due to persistent inflation amid unstable consumer prices. The decision was announced on Friday following a Monetary Policy Committee meeting.
Today, we determined that while core inflation is expected to continue to slow down, it is appropriate to maintain the current monetary tightening trend and check prices because of high uncertainty in the consumer price outlook.
This is the 10th consecutive meeting in which the BOK has decided to freeze the rate since it was raised to 3.5% in January last year, following 10 consecutive rate hikes in a bid to bring inflation down to a target of 2%. While on-year growth in consumer prices fell to the 2% range in January for the first time in 6 months, figures for February and March saw an upward tick back into the 3% range due to high prices of agricultural products and oil. The BOK's assessment of recent economic developments commented that deceleration in consumer price inflation has stalled due to heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, causing concerns over stable oil supply. In the press briefing following the meeting, the BOK governor commented that it could be difficult to start cutting rates if inflation stays above 2.3% in the second half of the year. Recent data from the U.S. Labor Department has also shown an increase in consumer prices in the United States, with March's CPI rising by 3.5% on year. This is the highest on-year rise seen since September last year. Federal Reserve officials expressed concerns that inflation isn't coming down fast enough in their March meeting minutes, with Fed Chair Jerome Powell calling the road to getting inflation under control sometimes bumpy. Given this latest commentary, economists are now expecting to see rate cuts further down the line, with the current interest rate gap between the two countries at its largest ever at 2 percentage points.
So any discussion that the financial market may have had where the Bank of Korea may reduce interest rates during late summer or early autumn has disappeared. And I think there is a very good chance that the Bank of Korea will not lower the rates until very late in the year.
The BOK expects to have a more solid outlook for the year next month, but for now it will maintain its restrictive policy stance until it is more confident that prices are going down. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Also on the local front, employment expanded at a tangibly slower pace in March. In fact, job growth was the lowest in over 3 years. Lee Soo-jin explains.
South Korea's on-year job growth in March fell below the 200,000 range, the lowest rise in more than 3 years. Data released by Statistics Korea on Friday shows that there were 28.4 million people in employment last month, up 173,000 from the previous year. This comes after on-year job growth was in the 300,000 range for both January and February. And it's the lowest seen since employment figures fell in February 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is mainly due to base effect from job figures in the March period from 2021 to 2023, seeing large on-year rises, as well as the decrease in employment in the agriculture and fisheries sector due to abnormal weather patterns.
While jobs grew overall for people aged 15 to 29, employment actually fell by 131,000 compared to the previous year. That's the largest on-year drop seen since July last year, and employment of 40 to 49-year-olds also fell on year. On the other hand, there was an increase in employment for those aged 60 and above, as well as for those in their 30s and 50s. In terms of job sectors, employment figures in the agriculture and fisheries sector fell by 50,000, the largest on-year drop since 2017. And the wholesale and retail sector also saw a decrease for the first time in 6 months. But the manufacturing sector, after tumbling last year until November, recorded a rise for the 4th consecutive month in March with the addition of 49,000 jobs. Employment in the accommodation and restaurant sector was also up, with 7,000 new hires, seeing an increase for the first time in 3 months. Meanwhile, March's unemployment rate stood at 3%, 0.1 percentage point up from the year before, rising for the 5th straight month. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
An agreement on supply chains under the U.S.-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity is set to take effect in Korea next week. It's expected to help alleviate supply chain risks. Bae-yoon-ji has more.
An international agreement on supply chain resilience among Indo-Pacific countries will take effect in South Korea next week, as part of the country's efforts to reduce risks in securing critical materials. Seoul's foreign ministry announced on Friday that the Indo-Pacific Economic Frame Agreement relating to supply chain resilience will officially enter into force starting April 17th. The deal, led by the U.S., allows member states to request and provide joint assistance through a crisis response network in case of a supply chain crisis. South Korea is the 6th country to ratify the agreement, following the U.S., Japan, Singapore, Fiji, and India. This is expected to help the country better respond to supply chain risks caused by trade restrictions from China. In 2021, South Korea suffered major disruptions to its logistics networks after China suddenly halted its urea exports. Urea solution is used in diesel vehicles, mostly cargo trucks, to cut emissions, and a dire shortage of the material led to serious disruptions in commercial transport and industries. South Korea had to fly a military oil tanker to Australia to airlift thousands of liters of urea solution. Since then, the Korean government has been pursuing a project that focuses on securing raw materials and diversifying supply chains of 16 items that the country has a heavy reliance on China, including graphite, magnesium, and urea solution. Imports from January to October last year showed the dependence on China for magnesium was 99.4%. Natural graphite was 97.7%, and urea solution was 90.3%. The South Korean government says the new IPEF supply chain agreement will boost the country's capability to respond to supply chain threats. But there are also concerns that signing the U.S.-led deal could possibly provoke China. Bae-yoon-ji, Arirang News.
Following Wednesday's general election, President Yoon is reportedly preparing to deliver his official stance next week. After a string of senior-level resignations, their replacements are being also talked about. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is planning to make an official statement early next week after his ruling People Power Party saw a crushing defeat at Wednesday's general election. The mood is somber here at the Yongsan presidential office as the Yoon administration recalibrates its approach to governing the country. The overwhelming opposition majority voted into parliament deals a heavy blow to the administration's ability to steer the course of state affairs over the next 3 years. Speaking to a local newswire Friday, a presidential aide said Yoon's office is working to deliver an official stance on the outcome of the election. This comes after Yoon initially released a brief comment Thursday through his chief of staff, humbly accepting the will of the people and vowing to reform the management of state affairs while focusing on policies to boost the economy and people's livelihoods. A more elaborate message will be reviewed over the weekend and is expected to set out how the administration will move forward and work with an unprecedented opposition to carry out major policy reforms in labour, education and pensions, along with new economic initiatives. The top office will also decide how the president will communicate the message, not ruling out a press conference, as observers call for a more open style of governance that seeks public consensus. To carry out a full reform, Yoon's office has hinted there will be an overhaul of senior figures in the administration after the Chief of Staff, all senior secretaries and the Prime Minister offered to resign on Thursday morning. While Yoon has not yet approved their resignations, he is likely to appoint a new Prime Minister and Chief of Staff, seeking veteran politicians who can skillfully advise on governance and communicate well with Parliament. Within the political circle, the rumoured candidates for the new PM are former Unification Minister Kwon Young-se, lawmaker Chu Oh-young, who has been re-elected for a sixth term in Parliament, current Daegu Mayor Hong Jun-pyo, and former National Assembly Vice Speaker Lee Ju-young. As new Chief of Staff, Kim Han-gil is a likely candidate as a former leader of the opposition and current Chief of the Presidential Committee on National Unity, as is lawmaker Chang Jae-won and Lee Sang-min, Minister of Interior and Safety. To strengthen communication with the opposition-led parliament and engagement with the larger public, President Yoon may well conduct a full-scale restructuring of his office in the weeks to come. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly is getting prepared to welcome new lawmakers-elect come May. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo explains what awaits the new members of the legislature in the upcoming month.
A little less than 50 days remain until the official launch of the 22nd National Assembly of South Korea. But the work doesn't start then. Since well before the April 10th election day, the Assembly's administrative offices have been busy at work preparing to welcome in a new batch of representatives. Beginning in March, separate offices joined together to launch a welcoming committee. 2 days before the voting day, they opened up a comprehensive center to support new lawmakers. Once the 300 new members of parliament were decided, the center began processing lawmaker registrations, providing guidance that will help those newly elected during the next 4 years. May 30th is the official launch date of the new assembly. This is when the preparation for the first extraordinary session begins. The first plenary session, a gathering of the full chamber, is scheduled for June 5th. If the meeting convenes as scheduled, the Assembly will vote in a speaker and 2 deputy speakers to lead them through the first half of their 4-year term. All members will be sworn in and the new speaker will give an opening speech. The president may also address the chamber. On June 7th, members will be appointed to respective standing committees based on their expertise and knowledge. These dates are outlined by the National Assembly Act. But many previous assemblies have pushed back their schedules due to clashes in opinions between the respective camps, especially as they appoint new committee leaders. This precedent should not give an excuse for the 22nd National Assembly to follow in their predecessors' footsteps, however, as pending issues affecting society do not wait. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United Kingdom are co-hosting the AI Seoul Summit from May 21st to 22nd. That's according to the top office on Friday, adding this is a follow-up to the AI Safety Summit held in Bletchley Park in England last November. This upcoming summit is about promoting innovation and fostering inclusivity and mutual prosperity on top of safety. It'll invite leaders from around the world virtually on the first day, with in-person meetings among ministers on the second day in Seoul. After the summit, there will be an AI Global Forum to work on establishing AI global governance. South Korea, the U.S. and Japan conducted a joint naval drill for 2 days in waters off Korea's Jeju Island to better tackle nuclear and missile threats from North Korea. In a rare move, a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier was opened to the media. Choi Min-jung with more.
Thursday afternoon in international waters south of Jeju Island, an aircraft carrier crew signals a U.S. F/A-18 Super Hornet fighter jet for liftoff from the USS Theodore Roosevelt, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy fleet. The jet soars into the sky in just 3 seconds, pouring billows of smoke and tremendous heat. Around 5 fighter jets quickly took off one after another within a couple of minutes. South Korea, the US, and Japan kicked off a 2-day naval drill on Thursday involving 6 warships. Alongside Washington's Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, Seoul's Aegis destroyer Sohae-ryu Seongnyeong, and Japan's Ariake-class destroyer participated in the training. The trilateral drill is part of the 3 countries' multi-year training initiative, which was jointly established during the Camp David Summit last year. The drill was focused on strengthening joint response capabilities amid escalating nuclear and missile threats from North Korea.
While we're here, we're working on increasing our tactical proficiency. Specifically, we're working on undersea warfare exercises. We're working on maritime interdiction operations. We're working on search and rescue operations. We are working to better communicate and share data, all of which better prepare us for a crisis in the region or any contingency within the region.
And in a rare move, Washington decided to give access to the nuclear-capable aircraft carrier to members of the media from South Korea, the US, and Japan at the same time. It's the first time media has jointly covered a maritime drill involving the 3 countries since the Camp David Summit held last August. The commander of the Carrier Strike Group 9 said the 3-way training was well-planned and well-coordinated.
It's an opportunity to work with the other navies in the region. It's an opportunity to learn about them and put names to faces.
South Korea's Navy stressed the drill was a great opportunity to increase the Allies' ability to counter North Korea's advancing nuclear and WMD threats. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Time now for our weekly arts and culture segment. We have our culture correspondent Song Yujin in the studio. Hi, Yujin.
Happy Friday, Jongmin.
Happy Friday. What do you have for us today?
Well, Jongmin, today is the beginning of Library Week here in Korea. And since last year, Korea has designated April 12th, which is today, as Library Day, followed by a week-long celebration of various events to raise awareness and also to really raise appreciation towards libraries and books nationwide. And when it comes to libraries, you can't talk about books, and Korean books, specifically literature, has been drawing significant attention on the global stage lately, with some even calling this the K-book phenomenon. So for this week, let's look into what sets Korean books apart on the international stage.
2024 has so far been a great year for Korean books. Last month, Kim Hae-sun became the first Korean author to win the U.S. National Book Critics Circle Award. Lee Gumi achieved another first for Korea by being shortlisted for the prestigious Hans Christian Andersen Award, while 3 Korean picture books won trophies at the Bologna Ragazzi Award. Novelist Hwang Seok-young's Mater 210 has also been shortlisted for the 2024 International Booker Prize. This success stems from Korea's decades-long efforts to export its literary works.
Since the 2000s, we've seen a surge in Korean literature exports, especially after author Hangang's 2016 Man Booker International Prize win. The evidence is domestic publishers establishing dedicated departments dealing with copyright and intellectual rights of Korean authors, an increase in contracts with major overseas publishers, and minimum guarantees for Korean authors soaring from 4 to 6 digits.
The numbers don't lie. Translation requests for Korean literature to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea jumped more than 20-fold in 2023 compared to 2014. What makes Korean literature appealing is the blend of distinctive, yet relatable themes.
Korean literature offers a unique perspective shaped by Korea's historical, political, and societal contexts, such as it being a divided country, which attracts international readers eager to explore something new.
Many readers often try out Korean literature through their love of Korean dramas and films. But what attracts them is how authors incorporate relatable themes like human rights, environmental issues, and challenges facing the younger generation into their unique storytelling.
But captivating themes aren't enough. Skillful translation is a must to captivate international readers.
A great translation preserves the emotional depth of the original by understanding both the author's narrative and the nuances of the target language and culture.
That's why the Literature Translation Institute of Korea has been running its Translation Academy since 2008. Notable graduates include Sora Kim Russell and Youngjae Josephine Pae, the translators of Mater 210, as well as Anton Hall, who translated Chung Bora's Booker Prize-nominated work, Cursed Bunny. Looking ahead, as the majority of translated Korean works are currently commercial fiction, introducing long-standing classics could ignite even more curiosity and interest in Korean literature. K-pop, K-dramas, K-food, and now K-books. Eugene, I wonder what's being done to broaden the global appeal of Korean books? Well, there's quite a few actually. So last week, the Culture Ministry announced a set of plans aimed at promoting Korean literature on the global stage through overseas cultural centers. So for instance, the Korean Cultural Center in Sweden is currently hosting an exhibition showcasing over 80 Korean picture books until the end of this month. And the Korean Cultural Center in Los Angeles, US will be inviting Chung Bora, the author of Cursed Bunny, for a lecture and book signing event. And also the center in Sydney, Australia will be hosting a Korean Literature Week at a big local bookstore near Bondi Beach in July, where they'll be exhibiting Korean literary works and hosting reading sessions. Sounds interesting. And Eugene, as you've mentioned earlier, it's Library Week here in Korea. Right. What can we look forward to? Well, the Culture Ministry once again has selected 30 libraries nationwide where they will host very engaging talks with selected authors on various topics ranging from the arts, history, and science. And we also have World Book and Copyright Day coming up on April 23rd. The ministry plans to organize a public book gifting event at Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square. More details on this event will be announced soon. All right, our culture correspondent Song Yujin, thanks for your report. My pleasure. A day before the weekend, the spring sun is hitting harder. People with short sleeves were on the streets today, showing that the weather feels like early summer already. Tomorrow will be warmer than today, with daily highs jumping up to 27 degrees Celsius in Seoul. However, the daily temperature difference is around 15 degrees. Please take care of your health. The weather continues to be dry day after day. Currently, dry advisories are in place in various parts of the central region, including Seoul, Eastern Gyeonggi-do Province, Wonju in Gangwon-do Province, and Cheongju in Chungcheongbuk-do Province. Forest fire crisis warnings are also maintained at a warning level in most parts of the country. Be careful not to cause any fire accidents. Tomorrow, Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan will start off at 13 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 27 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon, Daegu, Gyeongju, and Daejeon. On Sunday, the temperature in Seoul is expected to rise to 28 degrees, the highest temperature this spring. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up